Hi, and welcome to Suffrage School. My name is Katherine Marino. I'm a history professor at UCLA and the author of Feminism for the Americas, the Making of an International Human Rights Movement. Today, I want to share a document from the digital collections of Radcliffe's Schlesinger Library from the treasure trove that is the Doris Stevens collection. It's a letter to Stevens from Cuban feminist Ofelia Dominguez Navarro. In 1928, Doris Stevens, a famous veteran of the U.S. suffrage movement, collaborated with Dominguez Navarro and other Cuban suffragists to create the Inter-American Commission of Women. This commission was the first intergovernmental organization in the world that promoted women's rights, and it united feminist leaders from throughout the Americas in a Pan-American feminist movement. Stevens was its chair for a decade. Although Dominguez initially rallied around the commission, she and other Latin American feminists increasingly found Stevens's leadership too controlling and her goals for women's political and civil rights under the law only too narrow. Dominguez and others wanted to broaden these goals to include working women's social and economic justice and anti-imperialism. These goals became even more urgent after the Great Depression, and in 1931, when the US-supported dictatorship of Gerardo Machado unleashed new repression in Cuba. Machado jailed dissidents, including Dominguez herself, who was imprisoned several times. Dominguez's new group, the Unión Librista de Mujeres, explained to Stevens that in this time of political tumult, women's suffrage was not their key goal. But rather than sending them solidarity, Stevens sent them a terse letter that told them they should model themselves after US suffragists. Specifically, Stevens explained that they should appeal to all men in political power for suffrage regardless of their politics, writing, quote, "Beggars can rarely be choosers, and women are still beggars for their rights everywhere." This advice infuriated Dominguez, who wrote back in this fiery letter that in Cuba, their fight was for, quote, "the restoration of law, not just ours as women, but of an entire people deprived of liberty." She found the idea of appealing to dictators for women's suffrage reprehensible. Furthermore, she paraphrased revolutionary Cuban leader Jose Marti, quote, "Rights should not be begged for. Rights are to be taken." This letter became a larger act of resistance. In her archives in Havana, I found that Dominguez reproduced this correspondence as a flyer, one page front and back, and sent it to feminist groups throughout Latin America, who ultimately took over leadership of the commission and broadened the movement. I hope you'll explore Stevens's collection. It contains numerous letters, pamphlets, and newspaper articles from throughout the Americas in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. This rich archive demonstrates the global and imperial afterlives of the US suffrage movement. It also shows how conflicts over race, empire, class, and feminist strategy were critical to global movements for women's rights and human rights.